So, did something of music, let's say spiritual jazz, for want of a better term, did that die with Coltrane, John Coltrane?
It didn't begin or end with Train. Train brought it to a certain manifestation. He and his band, part of the African culture in a sense, American, of course, it's American African-American culture, you know, tuned into, let's say, cosmic vibrations. But you have to tune into the cosmic vibrations, not any African-American particularly. These are African-Americans who tuned into the cosmic vibrations. And they're also into the Eastern Hindu vibration, the Aum, right? The yoga vibrations. So you tune into the yoga vibration and something's going to be happening that could be potentially very powerful. So that was the top of the jazz, I guess you might say, evolution from, let's say, where it was earlier than that. There's an unfoldment there to a certain level of cosmic consciousness or universal consciousness. Can't call it free playing. I mean, some people call it that, but it's not about free playing. So it's about the evolution. It's about the unfoldment. It's not about free playing. You can imitate forms of free playing, but this wasn't about free playing. This is about being free, not free playing. So there was a tone set at that particular time in history, and it's a tone set by the yogis, you know, who are fierce, who are intense, who are all-powerful in a sense. And so Train was showing up as a certain kind of playing yogi, a yogi of the saxophone, doing the breathing, doing the chanting, doing the meditating, and going deeper and farther than other people have because of the processes he was applying. So anyone applying those techniques or processes are going to be going further and deeper. So that's the tone that was set, and it was kind of like a beginning, not an end. It's more or less an initiation, that these masters had achieved a certain level of initiation, right? Cosmic intelligence through music and self-liberating music as such. And they did their version of it, and it's up to each to continue that. They didn't do it to be the only ones. They did it as part of what they received to pass on to other peeps. The idea of passing it on is what we're talking about. So it had to be passed on. And that's what it is. The tone is set to be passed on. It's the tone of the new age. Self-expression, liberated expression. We're going right to the yogis and self-liberation. Right. It's a theme since the beginning, thousands and thousands of years. Self-liberation. It's not about jazz, it's about self-liberation. If you can find self-liberation in your jazz, fine. A few people have done it. More should venture to do it. It's beyond religion. It's not about a religion or religious form. It's about accessing the universal within you. Coming to realization that you are a certain creative point in the universe, and you are a channel for creative intelligence, creative manifestation, and universal intelligence. And musical intelligence, not just classical intelligence, not just jazz intelligence, not just folk intelligence, not just salsa or African, not just cultural intelligence, but cosmic intelligence. Going beyond your instrument, yourself, your thought, your mind, your family, your blood, your whole idea of what it is, your limitation of what it is. Your egoic, sort of like prison, going beyond that. Comment now.
So the music then, the later period music was born from the spirituality rather than the virtuosity.
Say that again?
The Train's later music came out of his spirituality as opposed to coming out of his virtuosity.
It came out of his practice, yeah, his spiritual understanding, his spiritual vision, you know, what he had known, what he had heard. And, you know, he listened to classical music as all intelligent people need to, up to a point. And then you see the limitations of classical music. See? You hear the limitations. You hear it, you see it. See? It doesn't matter how many books a person has. you're either liberated or you're not. And from that liberation, you know, something uses you. And that's the beautiful part about it. Coltrane was used, I'm assuming that he was used by a higher mission, a higher purpose, you know, a transcendent impulse to go beyond his time, to go beyond his norm, to go beyond himself. So the idea is self-transcending sound practice. And he was doing it for himself. And then he passed. Theoretically, he passed it on to his people. And they, theoretically, should be keeping that going. Not just saying they're, you know, part of the school. No, keep it going. You got to live the life of the liberated. Not just play music of those who have shown some liberation effects. See? But you need to live the liberated life. See? In other words, it's free of the world, free of the gravity of materialism to a certain degree. You have to live the life of a yogi. And that's the logical continuation. Everyone then must do it in the way that balances their karma. It's an individual process, self-realization, from the inside out. You hear that in Train's music. That's what he knew, that's what he was experiencing. And going beyond himself. He understood it. He was experiencing it. And some would say he never got to where he was going. Well, he got to where he could go, you know, as far as his body would let him go. Clearly, but then that's the beginning point. Where you end is the beginning point. Where you end is where you need to begin. Question?
He had incredibly vast musical knowledge, and yet it seemed like he wanted to get beyond or outside of that to a place where he wasn't playing from knowledge.
It's playing basically from his being. And I hear that in what he was doing. Despite his knowledge, so it's not about his scalar, let's say, impression or signature that he left. No, it's his urge towards freedom, his urge to be free. His will to be free is what comes out there. See, to move on. It comes out, it's there, it's palpable in his music, you know, in his voice. See, his voice in motion, ascension. That's the soul, that's everybody. It's not one culture, it's not one individual, it's the human race has the same potential. It has to be recovered. You have to recover your universal potential, ladies and gentlemen. Musicians, non-musicians.
So would you say for musicians trying to get beyond themselves, learning from his personal example as opposed to his musical example might serve them better?
What do you mean personal example?
Just his own personal path as a human being as opposed to...
What was that?
Jazz.
Well,
it seemed a commitment to spirituality.
Well, that's later, his later commitment. Yeah, after Love Supreme, it seemed to be much more related to that. So there's, where he left off is where you begin. So then you toe the line, you begin from there. And don't let the limitations, conditions, and demands of the world and materialism in the industry sort of impede you or stop you, because then you're not on the path. You're not on what Train's path was, see. Which is, you know, the warrior path, basically, just straight ahead till you blow, till it's over, in a sense. Everyone has to do it in their own way, but in other words, Train never felt like he was comfortable. You know? Like he had gone beyond comfort, in a sense. And let's say he had evolved to the point where he was not burdened by the potential he had for being too comfortable. And I think for artists, you have to understand, if you're too comfortable, you have to create discomfort in order to get your mojo going. See, create discomfort to get your mojo going. See? Don't be put to sleep by comfort. Don't make it too easy for you. There's death in too easy. See, it has to be too hard. There's power in too hard. See? In a sense. As the mountain gets steeper, you have to press harder, otherwise you never get to the top. Forget about the top. That's the challenge, it's a paradox. The higher you go, the harder it gets. Hello, the higher you go, the harder it gets. true. The more alone you are liable to be. Because if you're on your own wavelength, then nobody else is going to be on that wavelength. Come on.
Well, he seemed unwilling or maybe unable to compromise his music for the sake of career.
He was involved. Because he was so involved, he was evolving. He was evolving through involvement, engagement. He became the process. And that's what has happened to you. You have to merge with the creative process in you. And when that is done to perfection, there's no other people, there's nothing else. There's that. And maybe that's an aspect of what genius means in the highest or extreme sense of the word. Is you are it. It is you. There's no difference. And I have to say, well, I relate to all of that in terms of the fire inside. The fire in the middle, the pyramid.
Would you say that the intensity of his music led to his young demise?
There's no time involved. That's the theory about it. He gave it up. That's what it is. He just gave it up. And that's what each should do. And one of the old sayings is, what you're given, you must give to others. Whatever you're given in this way must be given to others. That's the law. And there your balance shall be. And therein lies your justice. Your just due. Your just measure.
It seems like he gave. I'm not sure how it was received.
It's not about what he gives, it's what the individuals have to give. This is about that time as a starting point for everybody else. Not an end point for everybody else, but a starting point for whoever can, what do they say in medieval times, take up the cross, right? Or take up the spear and the shield, whatever it is. Take up your instrument, there it is. It's all there, take it up. Take up your instrument, and then offer that as a certain kind of, let's say, offering to the source. As you can comprehend it, the source, where it all comes from. You have to feel that. You need to sense the connection with that ultimate and divine matrix itself that's in you. See, given to you by your mother. See, so it's a part of the mother. See, part of the mother's givingness. See, as she's given, and she gives. And she gives of herself completely. So you as an artist have to be like the mother, give of yourself completely in every way. For me, it's the writing, it's the speaking, the teaching, and the playing whenever that comes up. And it's all from the deepest place possible. So it's not popular, it's not social in a sense, it's extreme. It's an individual heart practice. And it's beautiful.
Is the academic and institutional approach to jazz that's currently in favor an impediment to...
No, you start the way you start, you learn what you need to learn, and then you learn it to burn it. That's it. What you learn, you burn eventually. That means you have to pass through what you learn, otherwise you're limited to just knowledge and the limitations of knowledge and the programs of knowledge. And you'll sound that way. You'll sound that you are bound to that. You won't sound as if you were free, free of knowledge, and thus free to know, for real. You need to go beyond knowledge, something established as a limit, or then a dogma of sorts, whether that's musical knowledge or whatever, historic knowledge. You have to go beyond that, because you're living the life of the fire of now, and that's how it should be lived, in the spirit of the inner flame that is present now, not somewhere else, in someone else more than what's given. Know what's given, cultivate what's given. And if you can go deeper to make it even stronger, then that's what you do, you focus on that. Depends on what kind of artist you want to be. You want to be a pleaser, like everybody else pleasing each other? Fine, then. Your path is clear. If you want to go beyond pleasing others, and you want to go beyond yourself completely, to the extreme, you want to merge with the fire itself, that's lawful. That's okay. Some would expect you to do that from different levels. Oh, of course, but what is communion? You're going to reach communion by pleasing other peeps, really? Oh, by being nice to other peeps? Playing this to be nice to other peeps, you're going somewhere that, really? Really, that's the extreme? That's as much of an extreme you can handle? Think about it. Can you go beyond that? And we're talking being touched by madness, or the divine fire. You go that way with peace in your heart and mind.
So Coltrane went through incredibly rigorous training before he went, let's say, in his free musical direction. So was that an asset to him? In other words, if you're going to learn it to burn it, is it good to learn a lot so you got a big fire to burn?
Depends. Not everybody's the same. So you may need a little bit to burn. You need to know yourself in that way. You have to know what it is. You have to be honest with your level of, say, practice. And then, so it's not even like you judge, but something in you determines what it is. See? It knows more than you do. Because then you're used by that, so then there's nothing to say about it. See? It brings you to the precipice, and then you deal with that. It's not you, but you cooperate with what this is, and then we call it spiritual. Spiritual. You lead yourself up to a certain point, then it shows up, and then you're done. And it's doing what it has to do. It's called the spiritual path. Come in.
So does, for a musician like that, does the past limit or determine the future?
In some peeps' cases, the past is what needs to be sacrificed. It's part of the fire of the future. You're going to sacrifice the past, and so it's like wood for the fire. Then everything becomes wood for the fire. Every moment is wood for the fire. Every impulse is wood for the fire. It must be sacrificed accordingly, gracefully, peacefully, selflessly. Come in.
Are there limitations in place that keep people from these
They
opportunities?
people put the limitations on themselves. Everybody's exactly where they need to be, doing what they need to do, whether that's being limited or not, being miserable, happy, unlimited, or creative, or whatever. See, it's on the individual. See, it's an individual process. See, whatever your limitations are that you recognize, you have to defy them. You have to destroy the barriers. You have to liberate yourself. You have to step out of your coffin. To get out of the cemetery.
Do you think Train was done in by his choice to follow this musical and spiritual direction?
What do you mean done in?
Let's say shortened his life, or...
No, there's no shortening life. There's no such thing as that. He had the full life. You heard his playing? What was he short of? What was he
Years.
lacking? What was he lacking?
Years?
No, that's just an assumption. Just like saying he's incomplete. Yeah. But by whose standard of years? Yeah, it's an assumption. Yeah, it's not true. When your time comes, you're done. You're gone. It's not a conversation about what you did or what you didn't do at that point. So it's called rest in peace. Right? You could have 200 years and not accomplish what that music accomplished. Of course, it's as much a letting go as it is taking on. Who can let go? Who can make that sacrifice? Who's willing to do that? So it's a paradox, it's a mystery at the same time.
Can it be done in emulation? Can somebody get to their own place by wanting to follow or be like Train?
Well, if you practice yoga, you can get to the same place, a comparable place. So you have openness and creative, let's say, manifesting. You know, you can get to that place. Of course, your message then will be different because your club is different. You can't expect to duplicate exactly what that was, but yeah, can we rise or lift ourselves up to a level of power like that? Yeah, that's more doable than not. Are you going to be expected to sound like that? Not necessarily. You have to sound the way you sound. Then each one has their level of, let's say, realization and fullness, and play to your, let's say, your level of fullness. Your karmic state and condition, and then maybe your realization of fullness.
Do you think Train had musical intention to get specifically where he went, or was he kind of carried along by his own discovery?
I'm not here to think for him. He obviously had purpose in mind. I didn't know him. I knew him as music. You need to read the music. What does the music tell you? So he's very thorough. He's a scientist as well, as a certain kind of yogi. He's doing it. So he had a sense of direction. There's no doubt about that. Did he have ideas about where he was going and what he wanted? Obviously, it's clear. It's clear. But it's not about him and focusing on him, but seeing what he did as setting the tone for everybody else. So it's not about going back there and fixating and obsessing on him. It's understanding that he took certain liberties that each one of us has an opportunity to do in the present. So that means to get real, get deep, and be extreme about it, not mediocre about it. Be real about it. That's what's upon us, keeping it real.